Hey guys, today I want to talk with you about All This Time, a young adult romance novel by Rachel Lippincott and Mickey Douthry. All This Time was published in 2020, and I'm not ashamed to admit that the only reason this novel ended up on my reading list was because of its beautiful cover. As per usual, we will start this review with a short synopsis and then proceed to the non-spoiler review and wrap this video up with the spoilers. If you haven't read All This Time yet, but you know that this is something you want to do, then do not worry. I will make sure to let you know when the spoilers begin. So the premise of this book is rather simple. Kyle, a life-loving, popular quarterback, gets dumped by his long-term high school girlfriend Kimberly on their prom night. And if that wasn't enough to ruin their night, their car crashes, killing Kimberly and leaving Kyle severely injured. Stricken with grief, Kyle doesn't know how to continue on living his life until he meets Marley, a girl who's also familiar with loss, yet who manages to bring back the smile on Kyle's face. As the time goes by, their fragile friendship starts to grow into a loving relationship. Yet Kyle can't manage to shake the feeling that all this newfound happiness could disappear at any moment. And well, he might just be right. Let me start by saying that I'm definitely not an intended demographic for this book. The Fault in Our Stars and Looking for Alaska, both by John Green, were my only two attempts to check out this young adult contemporary romance genre where nothing ever goes according to the plan and people are unhappy and the world is a dark place. As you might have gathered by now, said books, while not exactly disappointing, also did not encourage me to continue seeking out the genre. And yet, once this book ended up in the list of the books a book club I'm currently in was planning to read this year, I was looking forward to being proven wrong. I was looking forward to being completely submerged into the lives of Kyle and Marley. Unfortunately, I was not. Now, I have to say that All This Time, objectively speaking, is not a bad book. It has all the things someone would expect to find if they're seeking out to find a story revolving around suffering teenagers. It was very easy to read and it was overall a pretty story. But it wasn't memorable. It was the type of book that takes you a day or two to read and then you put it away and you forget what this book was actually about. So once we sat down in my book club to discuss All This Time, quickly enough we realized that none of us have anything of value to say about it. We all did remember the main storyline of the book, but besides that, it didn't evoke any feelings, any debates. It was just the book. It felt rather predictable and even quite boring at times. And since I did not particularly enjoy reading it, I just found myself being picky about everything. I found the main characters of the book to be annoying, the story to be over-the-top dramatic and wildly unrealistic. And I know the author said that the story told in this book should not be taken literally, but even with that in mind, the ending of the book just didn't feel right. In addition to that, the love, this big life-changing love, left me uninspired. Maybe when you are a teenager and you read this story, you think, oh my god, this is so romantic. But when you start pushing your 30s, you just see how naive these young people are when it comes to love and relationships. And that might also be the reason why I'm currently sipping wine and not tea while talking about All This Time. This book made me feel older than I usually do. The only saving grace of All This Time was the plot twist that was introduced in the second part of it. If not for the plot twist, I do not think that I would be doing this review at all because there wouldn't be anything I could or want to say about this book. But the twist was actually clever. It was a breath of fresh air, even if it was a temporary one. Anyhow, I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you enjoy John Green, maybe you should give this one a try. And if you are like me, maybe you should consider finding an adult romance novel to read instead. On this note, we will move to the spoiler review so we could talk about the characters and the plot twist and the ending more freely. If you haven't read All This Time yet, and now it's a great time for you to click off this video. Alright, so let's begin the spoiler review by saying that I don't like any of the main characters of this book. Let's see, we have Kyle, Kimberly, and Marley. I didn't like Kyle one bit. Sure, he's just a confused teenage boy who is going through quite a lot. His sports career ended before it could even properly begin. His girlfriend broke up with him, he got into the accident, the same accident that killed Kimberly, and now he needs to live with all that knowledge that he's partially responsible for her death and that their last conversation was far from pleasant. That's a lot for one person to go through in such a short period of time. Yet the fact that for the longest time he didn't notice that his girlfriend is unhappy makes me believe that Kyle is also rather selfish. The way he pushes away his friends after the accident and the way he communicates with Marley just adds to this opinion of mine. Even the way he's initially borderline obsessed with his relationship with Kimberly to just later turn 180 on us and become just as obsessed with Marley felt weird. It never really seemed to me like he loves those girls for who they are. It felt more like he just initially liked this idea of a love story of being with one and the same person since childhood, and then he liked the idea of being somehow destined to be with Marley. Now, Kimberly, from at least the very first scenes of the book, felt to me like someone without a backbone. Her declaration that she just wants to turn around and for once not see Kyle there shows us so very well that she has not been happy with him for quite some time. She kept on breaking up with him over and over again throughout the years they have been together, and yet every time she broke up with Kyle, all he had to do was tell her no, not happening, and so she went back to him and they kept on dating like nothing happened. In addition to that, what she did to Kyle, the way she pretended to apply to the same university, and how she pretended that they both are going to leave together and have this epic shared college experience was a pretty shitty thing to do. Moving out of your home and leaving to university can be incredibly stressful. I myself moved to a different country to study. I have never been to that country before. I didn't know the language, I didn't know any of the people living there, and to this day that was probably one of the most stressful things I have ever done. And back when I applied to university, I applied to it with one of my best friends, and we both got in, yet due to personal reasons she ended up changing her mind about going. If she had not told me that as soon as she decided it, and instead would have dragged me along and pretended that we will be there for each other all the way until the school ended, I feel like I would have been so pissed that I would not want to speak to her ever again. And while Kyle is not making as big of a step as I was, he was still misled by Kimberly. She made him believe that it's two of them against the world, which just wasn't the case. Overall, they as a couple, from my perspective, just seemed ridiculous. And I'm not even sure if the authors of the book intended for me to feel skeptical about their teenage love, or did they want me to believe that it was the real deal which just ran its course. But one way or another, all I could see were two typical teenagers who were together for such a long time just because they simply didn't know any other way. Lastly, for the most of the book, Marley just felt like a cliche to me. Your very own typical Manny pixie dream girl. She's quirky, she separates her condiments using her fries because every condiment deserves its own space. She goes around picking snails from the pathways and treating ducks like they're dogs. Her character, her motivations, wants and needs are very surface level, and for most of the book it just felt like her only real purpose here is to teach Kyle to embrace life again. Marley is always there for Kyle, but Kyle is not there for Marley, is he? Of course, the lack of depth when it comes to Marley's character can be very well explained with the book's plot twist. I mean, when reading the book, I always had this little annoying feeling inside me pointing out that something is a little bit fishy here. And while reading, I got myself convinced that Marley's actually dead. And in the case she is not, then Kyle is. One way or another, something is going to happen here. And if I'm being honest, I found the plot twist to be immensely enjoyable. While I was bored reading the first 2/3 of the book, this twist actually piqued my interest enough that I wanted to push the other things I had to do at the time aside just so I could continue reading. And that twist, it could have made the book overall interesting. But the authors just have to go ahead and ruin it with an over-the-top nonsensical ending. There are two things that I absolutely hate about this ending. How Kyle learned nothing relationship-wise from this experience, and how it was over-the-top soap opera level dramatic. So we meet Kyle in the beginning of this book being absolutely hung up on Kimberly. They have been together forever. He imagines no one else by his side but her. He wants them to go to study together, get married, have children, and live happily ever after. His whole life consists of him and Kimberly together. And Kimberly dies. And right before dying, she alludes to how much pressure it is to be Kyle's everything. She tells him that she needs to find herself, and she wants Kyle to take this opportunity to learn who he is without her. And the way I see it, the best ending for this book, the right ending for it, would have been if Kyle would have actually learned this lesson. The way I see it, I would have loved for him to wake up from this coma and realize that Marley is not actually real. I loved how the book explained quite easily the conversations he had with Marley, the smells he gotten familiar with during the coma. I liked how they turned it around on us and actually gave us the logical explanation to all of this. And at the same time, it showed just how wonderful human brain is. I would have absolutely loved the ending where he wakes up, goes through all these motions of being told that Marley is not real and wanting to find her, and going as far as running away from the hospital and finding that other girl named Marley just to realize that she's not his Marley. And that would have been the last kick in the ass Kyle needed to understand that Kim was right. That it's not her and not Marley that makes his life full. That he needs to learn to be happy by himself. But instead we get the second mini plot twist where we learn that Marley is indeed real and she was reading him her stories, and so Kyle just instantly turns Marley into the center of his universe. He basically just exchanged Kimberly for Marley. Same thing as in the beginning of the book, just a different girl. And even Kim's story was handled weirdly in my opinion. She started this book wanting to be alone, to realize who she is without a boyfriend. And throughout the book, Kyle just basically hands her over to his best buddy because, you know, he was so patient, he needed a reward for that. And while it wasn't explicitly said, you just know that Kim is already well on her way into a new relationship because no one is allowed to be single. Single means sad. Also, as I have mentioned before, I can only suspend my disbelief to an extent. And I already had to do so in order to believe that Kyle heard every single story Marley told him while he was in the coma, that she looked exactly the same way he imagined her, and that they had this immediate intense connection basically as soon as they met in real life. For a book that is already more fairy tale than a contemporary romance, I wonder why, oh why did it need it to end in such a dramatic manner? Was everything that we went through not enough? Did it really need this whole scene with Marley getting hit by a car, temporarily dying, and managing not only to have a full conversation with Kyle while dying, but also to meet her dead sister and then will herself back to life? Was that really necessary? The only reason for this over-the-top dramatics that I can come up with is the need to give Marley the tools needed to forgive herself. But come on, that was way too much. When we reached the point of the last car accident, I knew I just can't take anything this book gives me seriously. The last thing that I have to point out about all this time is that the book was trying way too hard to be emotional. Now, I consider myself to be an emotional reader. I will mouth the words while reading them. I will get so excited that I will jump from my seat and close the book, letting the excitement roll over me. I will get scared and joke around about stuffing my book in the freezer, Joey Tribbiani style. And I will cry. I will ugly cry so much that I will end up giving myself an emotional book hangover. But this book made me feel nothing. This book was trying so hard to be an emotional read that it just felt fake to me. The authors were pulling all the tricks up their sleeves. The breakup, the accident, Kimberly's death, Marley's sister's death, even the puppy adoption, and it still didn't make me feel anything. And I'm not even sure how to explain this to you, but all of it just felt weirdly insincere. Before I end this video, I want to quickly add that there was actually one thing that I absolutely loved about this book. One quote, to be specific. When Kyle wakes up from his coma, convinced that Marley's actually alive and not just a figment of his imagination, he says this to his mom: "What if you woke up tomorrow and I was gone, and everyone told you I never even existed? would you stop loving me? As a reader, I just adore this idea that you can love something or someone even if that someone lives solely in your imagination. But then again, Dumbledore said it first. But that's just my opinion. What about yours?